The Search Podcast USA Edition series is sponsored by Ascen. Ascen is a top employer of record in North America that exclusively helps staffing and recruitment agencies hire contractors compliantly throughout the US and Canada. Ascen's all-in-one white-label platform handles onboarding, timesheets, payroll, benefits, insurance, invoicing, and optional financing so you can grow quickly in the US and Canada. Start growing your staffing agency in the US today with Ascen. Visit us at ascen.com.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Search Podcast. I'm Elliott Manning, the Managing Director of Cayman Recruitment Group, spread across the UK and US. Every week, I've been bringing on different guests with different experiences who have had different journeys from the UK to the US itself, who can share their challenges, I suppose their beliefs and anything that's going to add value to the audience that want to learn about the American market, whether you are in the UK and haven't established yourself over there just yet, or on that journey to that physical presence and success that we see a lot of. But on this week's episode, I've got a great guest. Very, very reputable business, very well-known business as well, based in the south of the UK. But I'll let you take on an introduction, mate, properly.
Yeah, appreciate it, Elliot. Well, thanks for having me on. My name's Nathan. I'm the owner of Holt Technical, which is part of the Holt Recruitment Group. Been around since 2006 as a group, mostly based in the UK, but we've always had a bit of work in the US, but most recently, within the last sort of 12 months, we really dedicated our resources and my division is focused purely on technical recruitment for the US. So
Fantastic.
yeah,
What date did you start the US then? What was it like this last year? Was it because you said you were dabbling in it a little bit in the past?
Yeah, so we had an executive search division of the group, which has always operated globally because of the level of candidates and the type of work that they picked up and the businesses they worked with. It was quite niche because it's relatively sort of satcoms based and focused. So they've had exposure to the US market. But I think over the last 12 months, and you would have seen it yourself and anyone listening to the podcast, like the US has blown up, certainly from a recruitment perspective. So we knew we had the ability, we've got the capacity. And yeah, like I say, last year made the switch to just put a real focus on having some manpower and capacity, just looking at that market in that area,
Was it 100% switch though? Because I know a lot of recruitment companies that are like trying to make the switch and transition, but because it's a new market as such, they're dabbling still with the UK, Europe. They're still trying to do then the US a little bit. Were you 100% all in?
Yeah, so we've kept the UK parts of the group going. So we've still got three divisions that are focused purely on UK recruitment because it would be silly to throw the name away, right? We've got a lot of relationships and a lot of business there. So this was more about adding arms to that to capitalize on the knowledge and ability we've got here, but take that over to the US market. So it just rather than dabble, we decided that let's push a real focus out there in addition to what we've got in the UK.
Yeah, fine. And in doing that, did it change? And I'm going to kind of delve into this a little bit, if you don't mind.
Of course.
From a personal level, did it change anything? Was the balance of the hours tough? Like, did you have any, you know, differences that you kind of had to adapt to? Because I mean, having done it myself and every business owner and business that tries to do the US, it is not easy, right? It's challenging. It sacrifice, I think, is the best word to maybe use. Have you seen that yourself? Have you experienced anything different?
So this is always an interesting topic. And you'll relate to this as a business owner. I think it wasn't too bad a switch because we put in every hour under the sun anyway, right? So like you're used to working all sorts of weird and wonderful hours. But I think in a general sense, yes, there's definitely changes you have to make. We've tried to accommodate that as well as we can as a business and given the ability to people to have real flexibility around when they do their hours.
Yeah.
But realistically, for anyone looking to move into the American market, if you're still based in the UK, you have to be willing to work until half nine, 10, half 10 at night sometimes. If that's when the people are looking to make calls, you've got to do that. Now, how you then switch your work-life balance up, you do get your mornings back. I'm always an early riser, so I was able to sort of flip my day on its head a little bit. So I haven't missed out too much. But yeah, I think in general, if anyone's looking at the US market, they have to be willing to accept that there's going to be late nights. It's just the way that it is. But there's rewards for that, right? So
I mean, yeah, the rewards are far greater, but it is that sacrifice. And I feel like, and it's kind of like a catch-22. I don't know if you see the same thing, but like post-COVID, and the way that we're set up with flexibility and working efforts are more hybrid, and you can kind of adapt to it a lot easier. But I feel like before COVID, where pretty much everyone was in for office 5 days a week, mandatory, very standard setup, to work the US market and to be in office 5 days a week does create a lot of, in my opinion, it can be quite tough. I wouldn't say it's a problem, it's bad, but I think it's tough. Whereas these days, it's a lot more flexible to kind of allow adaptability. Does that make sense?
yeah, I mean, you're dead right. I think the ability to have people working from home, it makes it easier because obviously when you switch off, you can switch off. You're at home, so just even that commute piece makes life a little easier.
Right.
I think the trouble, I guess, comes from the fact that recruitment's very energy orientated. So having people in an office all together, pulling together to get through the tough times and celebrate the good times. I think you miss that a little bit with the work from home, and we are starting to see now. You'll see it yourself. There's more people coming back to the office, but yeah, when you're working in a broad market, that ability to be at home, I mean, it eases things a little bit.
Yeah. So previously an engineer yourself, with a specialism in the same market now and operating in the US, can you tell us a little bit more about, what you guys are doing over there, like where your main, focus is? Is it a particular geographical location? Is it a particular market of engineering? Yeah, feel free to let us know, I guess, what you're doing.
Sure. So we're focused on, so it's technical recruitment, so it's all within engineering. We say that our niche or niche, if
Yep.
depending on what you are,
Niche
where you are,
nowadays, yep.
it's like the white collar level of engineering. So manufacturing, production, process engineers, quality engineers, and then that management piece just above them.
Yeah.
We've got clients that come to us for the blue collar stuff, and that tends to derive from the fact that I've done that myself. So ex-engineer, did an apprenticeship, worked my way through the business. So I've been able to be lucky enough to gain a good knowledge of the market. But we tend to see the real value in the white collar piece, just because those roles take time for people to search for, and recruitment's all about saving your clients time. So and then geographically in the US, East Coast tends to be where we've started for a number of reasons. That the time difference is the easiest and the friendliest to get on with.
Yeah.
But also a lot of the research we did identified that quite a few states across the East Coast were like in the top 10 of manufacturing states across the US. So there's good crossover for people relocating from state to state. The laws and regulations tend to be relatively similar, so that minefield can be avoided a little bit. But yeah, so the East Coast tends to be where we're focusing at this point in time. But it's we're looking to go all the way across if we can. That's the goal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of I suppose the challenges that you may have come up against or faced, is there anything in particular that you've struggled with or found difficult, or has it been quite a smooth sailing journey so far?
I wish it had been smooth sailing. I think the biggest, I'd say the biggest adjustment, so using adjustment as the term rather than challenge, was you can't really get people on the phone. Americans, whether it's just a general rule, they tend not to answer the phone when you're trying to make sales calls or if you're trying to speak to candidates. So the biggest adjustment for us was trying to utilize those other avenues to grab people's attention. It doesn't take long to get your head around it, just a good message or a good cadence, utilizing LinkedIn, which most people do nowadays anyway. But that was certainly the biggest challenge. Was you've gone from a UK industry where being on the phone is paramount, right? We all we all try and target our people to make phone calls and try and get onto calls with people. But in the US, they're much happier being communicated by over email or via LinkedIn message. Like that was the biggest adjustment, and I guess challenge for us was changing into that style. Other than that, it's actually been pretty good. The market over there is pretty buoyant. They're really passionate, so they see you as a valued resource.
Yeah.
And they can see the value you bring to their business, as opposed to this country where we've now become a bit of a pest, for a better, want of a better word. But yeah, that was probably our biggest challenge and adjustment that we had to make, I reckon.
How receptive are clients to you guys and your services? Do you think being an engineer has helped a lot? And do you use that, I'm assuming, in your pitch, right? That, you've come from that background. I'd be using that all the time. I suppose, has that been an easy kind of setup for you, and they've been receptive, and has it been good to you in terms of bringing on new businesses?
Absolutely. Well, once you get the chance to speak to people and they can understand that they're talking to someone that they can actually relate to, and that they don't have to spend hours on the phone explaining what they're looking for. Yes, is in short, that it's a huge USP, and it does create a feeling of instant trust that you can fulfill that need, and you can search and find what they're looking for, because they can see you've come from that background. So
Yeah. So is that kind of like, have you had any difficulty bringing on businesses because you are in the UK, or has it not made any difference?
it's funny you say that. I wouldn't say we've had too much difficulty, but we have noticed that it is a thing for them. And I get it. I've probably had one client that's turned around and said, we're going to give our local guys a go because you're out of state. And when you try and drill into, well, why is that an issue? They want to give the local guys a try. There doesn't seem to be any logic to it. But even the clients that we've had, we recently did a visit over to the States and saw a few clients, and even some of those were, when they were introducing us, the other people and the hiring managers are like, wow, they're from the UK, and they're helping us. Why are people in the US not helping us? Like even the ones you have success with can't seem to get their heads around it.
Do you know what I think is mad is, like, you would have thought that they would have been business developed by now by some other agency somewhere, and even in the US or even in the UK.
Yeah.
Just never the case, which I find, really interesting. That is such a huge market that no one's even touched the sides of it. So it does give you the opportunity to go and attack it. I had a chat with a business owner yesterday in a different market, and she asked me for some advice around kind of like business development and challenges and anything I could suggest. And I don't know if you've seen the same thing, but doing business development in the US, from my opinion, is a lot easier than in the UK. Less gatekeeper control and a lot more easy access and a lot more receptiveness on relationship building and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
However, if you don't deliver, you kind of, that client's going to lose interest very quickly in the US. Like, they love relationship building. They will meet you. They'll go for coffee with you, no problem. But you have to deliver. And if you don't, then they're going to forget about you. But the flip side of it is that in order to have successful business development in the US, you need to be persistent and consistent. So they may not give you business now in February 2025, but if you stay in contact with them, they will give you business in February 2026, and they could be your best client. But if you remain in control of that contact, is that something you would agree with?
Agree with everything that you just said, my friend. I think we've seen that persistence is key, absolutely, and in a way, the US clients that we've got have actually preferred to be pestered. They like you to keep on at them. And we've had a number of occasions where they've come back and apologized, even though we're the ones doing the pestering. They've apologized for not picking up the call. And I think there's two reasons why we're probably, if you're from the UK, you're seeing success in the US. I think work ethic is one of them. You've just mentioned it there. Persistence, like you've come from a market that's very saturated, like an industry, the recruitment industry in the UK is saturated. So you've had to be very on top of everything. And that goes a long way. Like they like the fact that we're professional, we know what we're talking about, and we put in a good shift when we're doing the job.
Yeah.
But also that, again, you mentioned it, the relationship side, delivering on what you say you're going to do, even if it's as simple as, well, you may not need me now, but I'll give you a call in a month's time. How does this date and this time work for you? And then following that and making sure you make that call.
Yeah.
Those little details seem to be worth their weight in gold to the US market. Like they're all about trusting you and getting on with you and seeing that you're willing to do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
And then, like I say, once you are in there, the fact that we've come from a UK industry that's made you very sharp at recruitment, that then sells itself. It's head and shoulders above. And no offense to US recruiters, but I think we've developed a skill set that is head and shoulders above what they're used to in the US.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's your plans for the business now? What do you guys see happening with Holt going into the next couple of years? Are you moving to the US? Are you staying here? What's the next thing?
So yeah, we're going to be getting boots on the ground in the US. The goal for us is to have a couple of sites over there, and we're talking in the next sort of 12 to 24 months. We want to be quite aggressive because we can. There's good buoyancy over there.
Yeah.
So yeah, boots on the ground in the US, trying to cover the entirety of coast to coast, and then from a business point of view and a personal point of view, I'm also expanding into Australia because again, there's a lot of manufacture going over that side of the world, and
Cool,
I love that place. So me and the wife are hoping to move over there when we can and live the life of luxury in Sydney.
Are you going to do the Australian market from the UK?
No. So that'll just start when I get over there. The
Okay,
US and then it will be solely US and Oz recruitment once I'm over there, because the time difference is quite friendly for US from where we're going to be in Australia as well. So
yeah, fine.
But
And
yeah, there's
where would you let's set up an office in the US? Where's the geographical focus going to be?
again, good question. I think so. At the moment, we've got a registered office that we're going to put a bit more time into. That's in Texas. I think that
Okay.
seems to be everybody's buzzword
Third
right
person
now.
in the last 24 hours to say Texas. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've got an office in Austin, so I get it. But yeah.
there you go. I mean, yeah. Well, there you go. You know yourself. There's a lot of business sense to putting boots on the ground in that particular part of the states.
Yeah.
And then I think moving forwards, West Coast, I honestly don't know. We'd have to put a bit of time into looking into that. Ideally, it would be California, but it's a legal minefield. So whether that's a sensible thing to do or not, we're going to look into.
I wouldn't recommend it personally.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, yeah, Texas and probably Boston would be the first two that we get going. Boston's a really good hub. We know ourselves a few people that are over there doing recruitment, having a good lot of success, and you've got good scope to be across that coast. And like I said to you before, there's so much manufacturing over there that it would be a great place to have a little office set up. So
Absolutely. Nathan, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast for this episode. Really, really insightful information. You guys know what you're doing, seem to be doing it very, very well. And, it sounds like you're at the start of the journey as well before you get over there and physically kind of take over the US market in your space. But, I love learning about new businesses and what they're doing and how they're operating. And, the I suppose the thing at the minute is for just everyone to just learn and understand that it is different to the UK and what they're used to recruiting for and how they recruit, and just to kind of adapt to that very quickly. Otherwise, it can be a real slog to get it off the ground. But mate, I wish you the best of luck with everything that you're doing, the business as well, and its progress and success over in the States. And thank you for joining me on the search.
oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me on. And anyone listening, make sure you listen to this podcast. There's some real insightful interviews on this. So anyone that's looking to start up and move to the US, there's a lot of people on here with a lot of good things to say. So yeah,
Absolutely.
Elliot, appreciate it, my friend. Thanks for having me on.
No, thank you very much. And I'll put Nathan's details out to market when this goes live on every podcast channel. So if anyone is based in the south of the UK, wants to entertain an opportunity with these guys, or even wants to understand what it takes to do what they're doing, feel free to reach out to him in the business directly, and I'll push them in your way, mate. That's not a problem at all. Thank you
Amazing.
very much, and I'll speak to you soon.
Take care.